After years of feeling like a ghost in my own marriage, I finally felt seen, by someone else. It started innocently, a shoulder to cry on, a friend who listened. But soon, his words were the ones I needed to hear, his touch the one I craved. When my husband finally asked, "Why aren't you mad at me anymore?" I smiled softly and said, "Because I stopped needing you." His confusion turned to fear when he saw the goodbye letter on the table. I never planned to cheat. I never even thought I had it in me. I used to be one of those people who would hear stories about infidelity and think, how could they? Just leave if you're that unhappy. I thought cheating was something selfish, something cruel. But what I didn't understand back then was that loneliness changes you. It wears you down so slowly, so quietly, that by the time you realize what's happening, you're already drowning. I don't even know when it started. Maybe it was the first time I noticed Ethan didn't look at me the way he used to. Maybe it was when I started to feel more like a roommate than a wife. Or maybe it was when I finally stopped trying to fix what was breaking between us. Ethan and I had been married for 10 years. We weren't unhappy, not exactly. There was no dramatic moment where things went wrong. No screaming matches, no betrayals, no obvious signs that our marriage was falling apart. Just a slow, quiet decay. At first, I thought it was normal. Every couple loses the spark after a while, right? Life gets busy. Work gets stressful. You stop going on dates, you stop holding hands in public. But the love is still there. It has to be. But what happens when it's not? I can't remember the last time Ethan touched me like he wanted to. The last time he pulled me close just because he missed me. We had sex, but it felt more like a routine than anything else. A habit, like brushing our teeth before bed. I tried to bring it up a few times. "Do you still love me?" I asked once, half joking, hoping he'd laugh and pull me into his arms and tell me not to be ridiculous. Instead, he just looked at me like I had asked him what he wanted for dinner. Like it was a question that required actual thought. "Of course I do," he said eventually, and then he went back to scrolling through his phone. That was the moment something inside me cracked. I didn't leave. I didn't even fight. I just shut down. If he couldn't see me, then maybe I didn't need to see him either. That's when I met Ryan. He was the father of one of my students. His daughter, Lily, was in my 3rd grade class. I saw him at school events, always polite, always kind. We made small talk at parent-teacher meetings, the kind of casual conversation that doesn't mean anything. But one day, it did. It was after a school fundraiser. I was cleaning up, exhausted, and he stopped to help. "You look like you could use a break," he said, handing me a bottle of water. It was such a simple thing, but I almost started crying right there. We talked. About work, about life, about Lily. Nothing serious. Nothing inappropriate. Just two people having a conversation. But when I went home that night, I realized it was the first real conversation I had had in a long time. Ethan and I didn't talk like that anymore. We talked about bills, about schedules, about groceries. But not about anything real. Ryan and I started talking more. Just casual. Just friendly. A text here, a quick chat there. And then, one day, he noticed something. "You okay?" he asked after school one afternoon. I was fine. I was fine. But no one had asked me that in so long that I just broke. I told him everything. How I felt invisible. How I didn't even know who I was anymore. How I could stand right in front of my husband and still feel like I wasn't there. Ryan listened. He didn't try to fix it, didn't try to tell me what I should do. He just listened. And then he said something that changed everything. "You deserve to be happy." I went home that night and stared at Ethan while he slept next to me. I waited to feel guilty. I waited to feel ashamed for confiding in another man instead of my husband. But all I felt was empty. It wasn't an affair. Not yet. But it was something. Ryan and I kept talking. Kept finding reasons to see each other. It wasn't intentional, but I also wasn't trying to stop it. The first time he touched me, it was barely anything. Just his fingers brushing against mine when he handed me my coffee. But I felt it everywhere. I told myself it didn't mean anything. I told myself it was harmless. I told myself a lot of things. And then, one evening, we kissed. It wasn't planned. It wasn't some grand, passionate moment. It just happened. I pulled away first, breathless, heart pounding, guilt slamming into me so fast I thought I might be sick. "I'm sorry," he whispered. But I wasn't. I should have been. I should have walked away right then and there. But instead, I let it happen again. And again. And again. I told myself I would stop. That it was a mistake. That I wasn't that kind of person. But the truth was, I liked being seen. I liked being wanted. Ryan made me feel alive. And Ethan? Ethan didn't even notice. It wasn't just the kisses. It wasn't just the way Ryan made me feel alive. It was the fact that Ethan still didn't notice. I started coming home later. At first, I had excuses. Staff meetings, errands, last-minute things at school. But after a while, I stopped bothering. I'd walk in, hours later than usual, and Ethan would barely look up from his laptop. "Hey," he'd say, distracted. That was it. That was all I got. I could have walked in wearing another man's shirt, and he wouldn't have seen me. So I stopped feeling guilty. I stopped asking myself if I was a bad person. If I was selfish. If I was ruining my marriage. Because the truth was, I didn't think I had a marriage left to ruin. And then, Ethan noticed something. Not me. Not the distance. Not the way I barely spoke to him anymore. No. He noticed that I wasn't mad at him anymore. We were sitting in the living room, the glow of the TV flickering across his face. I wasn't even watching. I was staring at my phone, waiting for Ryan's name to light up my screen. Then Ethan spoke. "You've been different lately." I didn't respond. Just tucked my phone under my thigh and turned to look at him. "You're calmer," he said, like he wasn't sure if that was the right word. "You used to snap at me about things. Get frustrated when I forgot stuff. But now." He trailed off. I forced a smile. "Isn't that a good thing?" "I don't know," he admitted. "It feels weird." Weird. Not concerning. Not alarming. Just weird. I could have told him then. I could have looked him in the eye and said, "I don't need you anymore. That's why I'm not mad. That's why I don't care." But I didn't. Because I wasn't ready for it to be over. Not yet. Ryan and I kept pushing the line. Some days we were just friends, just two people talking, laughing, existing in the same space. But other days, it was like we couldn't stop. We found excuses. A late coffee run, a ride home because it was on the way. Once, he came to my classroom after school under the pretense of discussing Lily's grades. The door was locked. My back was against the whiteboard before I could even take a breath. It was reckless. Stupid. Dangerous. And I didn't care. But the universe has a way of forcing your hand. It was a Thursday when everything cracked open. A normal day, nothing special. Ethan had left early for work, and I was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, scrolling through my phone. And then I heard it. The front door unlocking. My heart slammed against my ribs. Ethan wasn't supposed to be home. He never came home during the day. I scrambled, locking my phone and setting it face down on the counter just as he walked in. "Forgot some papers," he said, heading straight for his office. I nodded like I hadn't just been texting another man. Like I wasn't seconds away from saying something I shouldn't. It should have been fine. But I made one mistake. I didn't turn off my notifications. I should have. I always did. But that morning, I was rushing. Distracted. Stupid. So when my phone buzzed, loud in the silence, I knew. I knew before Ethan even turned around. And when his eyes landed on the screen, on the message glowing up at both of us, I can't stop thinking about last night. Everything stopped. Time froze. I watched Ethan's eyes move over the words on my phone screen, slow and deliberate, like his brain refused to process them all at once. His lips parted slightly, his brows pulled together. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He was confused. "What's this?" he asked, voice steady but off. Like he was asking about the weather, but something in him already knew the storm had hit. I grabbed my phone too fast, fingers cold, heart slamming in my chest. My mind was scrambling for an excuse, but there wasn't one. There was no way to explain a message like that. Ethan wasn't stupid. He was distant, but not stupid. "Who is this from?" His voice was different now. Sharper. I should have lied. Maybe if I had, I could have bought myself more time. But I didn't. I just stood there, gripping my phone like it could protect me from the wreckage that was about to hit. And then, he laughed. A small, dry chuckle. Not because he thought it was funny. Because he was unraveling. "You," he let out a breath, running a hand through his hair. "Are you serious?" I swallowed. "How long?" he asked. "How long have you been fucking him?" The venom in his voice stung, but I didn't react. Maybe because part of me had been waiting for this moment. Waiting for him to notice. Answer me, he demanded. And then, the worst thing happened. Ryan called. My phone screen lit up in my hand, and there was his name, clear as day. Ethan's face changed. Like something inside him snapped into place. I backed up, suddenly terrified. I had never been afraid of Ethan before. Not once. He had never raised a hand at me, never screamed in my face, never been violent. But right then, I saw something in him that scared the hell out of me. You've been cheating on me. He said it like he needed to hear himself say it out loud. Like it wasn't real until the words left his lips. Ethan, shut up. I froze. You think I didn't notice? His voice was eerily calm now. You think I didn't realize something was off? The late nights? The way you stopped arguing with me? The way you started dressing nicer for work, wearing perfume even when you weren't going anywhere? My stomach dropped. He had noticed. He just hadn't cared enough to ask before now. Ethan shook his head, letting out a bitter laugh. I should have known. You've been pulling away for months. I gripped the edge of the counter, trying to steady myself. Then he asked the question I didn't want to answer. Do you love him? Silence. He exhaled sharply. Jesus Christ. He rubbed his face, pacing the kitchen. I didn't know what to say. There were too many things tangled up inside of me. I wasn't even sure what was real anymore. Before I could speak, Ethan stormed past me, grabbing his car keys off the table. Where are you going? I asked, panic creeping into my voice. He didn't answer. He yanked open the front door, slammed it behind him, and then he was gone. And that's when the real fear set in. Because I had no idea where he was going. And I had no idea what he was about to do. I called him. He didn't pick up. I texted. Nothing. An hour passed. Then another. I felt sick. And then my phone buzzed again. Ryan. I hesitated before answering. My hands were still shaking. Hey, he said, his voice warm like it always was. I was starting to think you were ignoring me. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Hello? Ryan asked, confused now. I took a breath. Ethan knows. Silence. Then, shit. Yeah, I whispered. Ryan exhaled. What happened? I told him. The message. The call. The way Ethan had left without a word. Ryan was quiet for a long time. Too long. And then, in a voice I barely recognized, he said, I think I know where he went. My blood ran cold. Where? I whispered. Ryan hesitated, then said something that made my entire world tilt. He's coming to find me. I shot up from the couch. How do you know that? Because he just texted me. The ground beneath me felt unsteady. What did he say? Ryan let out a slow breath. He said, I think we should talk. Man to man. Panic shot through me like ice. Ethan's not like that, I said quickly. He's not, he's never been violent. People change, Ryan interrupted. Especially when they feel betrayed. I squeezed my eyes shut. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. Ethan wasn't supposed to care this much. He was supposed to be indifferent. Cold. Disgusted, maybe, but not this. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. What are you doing? Ryan asked. I have to find them. And before he could stop me, I hung up and ran to my car. Because suddenly, I wasn't afraid of Ethan hurting me. I was afraid of what he might do to Ryan. I drove like a madwoman. My fingers were locked so tightly around the steering wheel that my knuckles turned white. My stomach twisted with something raw, something heavy. Fear. Not fear of Ethan. Fear of what this moment would turn him into. I didn't know where they were. I could guess, Ryan's house, a parking lot somewhere, maybe a bar. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I had to get there before things spiraled out of control. Ethan was calm, cold, distant. Always had been. But betrayal? That does something to a person. I dialed Ryan again. It rang twice before he answered. Where are you? I blurted. He exhaled into the phone. O'Malley's. Of course. The bar. The one Ethan went to with his coworkers. The one Ryan had taken me to, once, when things between us still felt safe. I pressed the gas harder. Is he there? I asked, my throat dry. Not yet, Ryan said. But he will be. And I don't think he just wants to talk. My heart slammed against my ribs. Ryan, I can handle myself. I closed my eyes for a second, gripping the wheel. Don't provoke him. Ryan hesitated. I won't. But something in his voice made me think otherwise. I pulled into the parking lot too fast, tires screeching. The neon O'Malley's sign flickered above me, casting everything in a sickly red glow. Ryan was standing outside, hands in his jacket pockets. He looked calm, but his jaw was tight. His shoulders tense. Where is he? I asked, breathless. Ryan didn't answer right away. Then, inside. Just walked in. I moved toward the door, but Ryan grabbed my wrist. You sure you want to do this? He asked, voice low. No. I wasn't sure of anything anymore. But I had no choice. I yanked my arm free and pushed into the bar. And there he was. Ethan stood near the counter, back straight, shoulders squared. He hadn't ordered anything. He wasn't here to drink. He was here for this. He turned as soon as I stepped in. His eyes landed on me, then shifted past me, locking onto Ryan. And for the first time, I saw it. Not just hurt. Not just betrayal. Rage. The kind of rage that comes from loving someone so much that their betrayal doesn't just break you, it destroys you. I had spent so much time thinking Ethan didn't care. That he was distant. That he had already let me go. But I had been wrong. So wrong. Ethan, I started. Don't, he snapped. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. Ryan stepped forward. Look, man, I know you're pissed, but, Ethan swung. It wasn't dramatic, like in the movies. No build-up, no warning. Just a raw, desperate punch straight to Ryan's jaw. The sound of it cracked through the bar like a gunshot. Ryan stumbled back, hand flying to his face. Jesus Christ, he muttered, spitting blood onto the floor. I lunged between them, shoving Ethan back. Stop. Ethan wasn't looking at me. He was breathing hard, hands still curled into fists. You had to know this would happen, he said, voice tight. You had to know. Ryan wiped his mouth, glaring. And what? You think hitting me is gonna fix your marriage? That did it. Ethan surged forward again, and I shoved against his chest, forcing him back. Ethan, stop. He was shaking. His whole body, trembling. You stole my wife, he said, voice low, guttural. Ryan's face twisted. I didn't steal anything. Ethan let out a harsh, bitter laugh. You sure about that? Silence. Then Ethan turned to me. His expression shifted. The anger was still there, but now it was something else. Something worse. You could have just told me, he said. His voice wasn't sharp anymore. It was quiet. Almost broken. I swallowed. You didn't even fight for us. The words landed like a slap. You just let it happen, he said, shaking his head. And I was too fucking stupid to see it. The guilt clawed its way up my throat. Ethan, you were my best friend, he interrupted, voice raw. And you didn't even give me a chance to fix it. Tears burned my eyes. Would you have? He flinched. And in that second, I knew the answer. Maybe. Maybe if I had told him months ago. Maybe if I had let him see how lonely I was before I found Ryan. Maybe. But it was too late now. He inhaled sharply, then turned to Ryan. You can have her. The words sent a knife straight through my ribs. Then he walked out. And just like that, 10 years of marriage ended in the middle of a bar. I sat in my car for over an hour. Ryan tried to talk to me, but I couldn't process anything he said. I kept hearing Ethan's voice. You didn't even fight for us. I had spent so long thinking Ethan didn't love me anymore. That he wouldn't have wanted to fight for me. But I never gave him the chance. I don't know what happens next. Ryan is still waiting. I know he is. But suddenly, I don't know if I want him anymore. Because for the first time, I have to ask myself a question I've been avoiding since the beginning. Did I leave Ethan because I didn't love him anymore? Or did I just stop trying?